Hello, everyone. Right, so it's time to go backwards a little bit to Learning Unit 5, where we're going to deal with some of the traditional methods of allocating or apportioning overheads. So remember, Learning Unit 5 is a bit of a busy one. There's lots going on in there. We've got how you value inventory, several methods there. And we also had a look at economic order quantity and all those associated calculations that we can do there. Right, so now it is the time to tackle those overheads. So they can be split into various categories. So I'm just looking to find, my correct item here. My Adobe is rather full. Sorry, and it was off the screen. Right. So let me go back to what I was saying. There are several different ways of being able to allocate, share, or apportion the overheads. So in terms of the traditional methods, there's several. We've got the direct, the step, and the linear algebraic method. We also have the predetermined overhead rate, where we say budgeted manufacturing overheads divided by the budgeted quantity of the base that the business is going to use to allocate the overheads. We did that in Learning Unit 7, where we did job costing. It's exactly the same as in Learning Unit 5. Then we have a more modern way of dealing with the overheads, and that is called activity-based costing. So what I want to do now is deal with two of the traditional methods. I feel I must do two of them because you need to do the one to see how the other one is different to it. So I'm going to deal with the direct method and the step method. So to do this, I'm going to do question 5.8 from the textbook, because I found that the textbook's explanation is all very confusing and extremely off-putting. But if you follow a question, it's going to make ever so much more sense. Right, so with this type of a question, it's important that you distinguish between the different types of departments. You're going to have production departments, and you're also going to have service departments. So let me try and highlight for you here. So it was difficult to photocopy from the book because the spine got in the way and made it all shadowed like that. But we've got four departments. We've got women's, which is a production department, and we've got men's clothing. Those are the two production departments. Then we also have another two departments. We've got admin, and we have facilities, and both of those are the service departments. So what we need to do here is find ways to apportion the costs from the admin and the facilities service departments to the production departments. So there's two methods that I want to look at. Okay, we'll leave the linear algebraic method. So the direct method, what do we do there? Okay. We take the overheads from the service departments, and on some basis, which the question tells us, we apportion them only to the production departments. So that's the direct method. End of story. Then when it comes to the step method, we realize that the service departments not only provide services to the production departments, but also to each other. So that's what we call interdepartmental services. So in this case, the admin department would provide services to the women's and the men's clothing, but they would also provide service to facilities. And then similarly, facilities would service both the production departments as well as the other service department being admin. Okay. So we need to find out what the allocation basis is going to be. So whether we are doing the direct method or the step method, as it doesn't matter, that remains the same. So let me show you here. Admin, which is a bit blurry over there. How's that done? Number of employees. So obviously those figures will have to be given. Okay. Then we can also look at the facilities department, and that is the amount of floor space. All of the relevant information is given there. Right. Then we have some other information down the bottom here, which for the purposes of this question, okay, we are going to ignore this because this is applicable to the linear algebraic method, which we're not going to do. So what is our actual question? Okay. Determine the amount of important service department costs to be reassigned to the production departments under those three methods. We're going to do direct and we're going to do step, but not linear algebraic. So this, remember, only deals with service departments because those are overhead costs. The ones in the production departments are direct costs consisting of the variable costs. Okay. Right, so let's deal with the direct method. As I said, all we do here is we, one by one, in no particular order. That's very important. The order does not matter for the direct method. However, it is extremely important in the step method. Okay. So whether I decide to start with admin or facilities with the direct method, it doesn't matter. Okay, it won't change the actual outcome. Okay. So I need to take each of those service departments and I need to share, or to use the proper lingo, reassign their department cost to both the men's and the ladies' production departments. All right, so what we're going to do here is we are going to find the direct department costs of, I'm just going to start with admin for no reason other than that A comes before F for facilities. So I'm going to see here that the admin services has a direct cost in its department, but that's only for it. That excludes what it does for the production departments of 90,000. So what I need to do with this 90,000 is I need to split it two ways. I need to share it between the men's and the ladies' clothing on the basis of number of employees. So if you have a look over here, in the production department, yeah, the number of employees is given for both the women's and the men's. So 15 people work in the women's clothing and 9 in the men's. So all I'm going to do over here is I'm going to take this 90,000 like this, because that is the amount for admin there, and I'm going to split it two ways. I'm going to split it to the, the women's department and the men's department. How? On the basis of the number of employees. And as mentioned, we only deal with the production department's number of employees in this method. So that will give us a total of 15 plus 9, 24. So 24 people work in the two production departments. So literally, it is just a case of splitting the 90,000 on the basis of the ratio of each of their number of workers. So let's do women. So there are 15 out of the 24 staff who work in the women's clothing department. So 90,000 times 15 out of 24 gives me the 56. Then the remaining 9 workers out of the 24, okay, is attributable to the men's clothing. So if I say the 90,000 times 9 over 24 gives me 33. And obviously, if I add the 56 and the 33 back together, it must come to the 90,000. So that is as simple as the direct method is, but you will never think so if you look at the book. Right, now we're going to do the same for facilities. So what is its direct department cost? Looking up here, facilities is 60,000. Now, on the basis of floor space in the two production departments, I'm going to share that 60,000 two ways amongst each of the production departments. So we are going to take the amount of floor space, which is up here in the production departments, 150 plus 75 will give us a total of 225 square meters. So I'm going to literally take that 60,000 and I'm going to split it into women's and men's, but on a different basis. So let's start with the women. 150 square meters out of 225 times the 60 gives me 40,000. The remaining 75 out of the total 225 times the 60,000 gives me the other 20. So that's it. We have taken the service department costs and we have reassigned them to the production departments. So now we need to write it all up. But we mustn't forget that the production departments also have their own direct department costs. So we need to add the reassigned service department costs onto their own department costs, which are these ones over here. There, the women's is 300,000 and the men's is 250,000. So I found the nicest way to do this is to use a little table such as this. Let's start with the women. There's its direct department cost. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go to the service departments where we did the reassigning, and we're going to add in those amounts. So I better just find a contrast color here. Okay, let's go with a dark black. So here, admin, we're going to now add in 56,250, which we're going to do down there. Then we come to facilities, and we're looking, remember, at the women's clothing. So the women's clothing share of the facilities service department cost is the 40. So we're going to add it all together. Women's direct cost of 300 plus its share of admin plus its share of facilities gives a total of 396,250. Easy peasy. Now let us do the same for men. There's its 250,000 direct department cost. Now we're going to come to admin. We see over here, on the basis of number of workers, we're going to add 33,750 admin cost to the production department, men. And we're also going to do the same, but for the other service department, which is facilities. So we're going to take the 33 and the 20, which are the reassigned service department costs, add to the men's direct cost, gives total of 303,750. So that's it. Direct method done. But now for something a bit more tricky. This is the step method. So what happens here is we realize that the service departments provide services not only to production departments, but to other service departments. So we need to do the following. We need to identify which of the service departments provides the most amount of services to the other service departments and production departments. And then we start with that one. So here I need to emphasize, so important, the order in which we reassign the service department costs is extremely important. If you remember, I said with the direct method, it doesn't matter. Here, order is very, very significant. The question in the exam will tell you which of the service departments provides the most services, and you begin with that one. And then you simply work your way down in a step fashion onto the next one and the next one until we're finished. So how does it work? Okay. The reassignment basis will still be the same. So facilities is still floor space and admin is still number of employees. The only difference now is that we are now going to start reassigning the service department cost to the other service departments in order. Okay. As I said, the question will tell you the order. So each service department is going to have its own allocation plus a portion that's been reassigned from the one that we start with. So we start with the most important one. We add a share of its cost onto the next service department. So we increase number 2's service department cost. And then should there be a third and a fourth, all we would do is we would then take the amount of the service department number 2, remember, which included a bit from service department 1. We will then reassign that to service department number 3. So we will incrementally keep increasing each service department cost by an amount coming from the one above till we are done with all of the service departments. Then we wrap up by assigning the last service department's costs to the production departments. Once we've done that, add it all together, question finished. Right, so the one in the textbook has 3 service departments in their example. So just to get us to understand the basics, I'm doing question 5.8 where there are only 2, but you would just repeat the process. Okay. So here it is not actually specified in the question, which is an oversight, but if you look at the answer at the back of the book, it tells you which one to start with. Okay. So here I've said we're going to start with facilities. So don't panic. There's no way in which you can determine that yourself. It will be given to you in the exam. And I just want to write in here so everybody can see it. NB. That's looking a bit better. The order is very important. You cannot do it another way because then you will get the wrong answer. So this question is going to say we're going to start with facilities because it provides the most services. Okay. So what we're going to do is we now are still sticking with floor space, but we are going to add the floor space in the other department because we reassign service department costs to other service department costs. So the name of the other one, remember, was admin. So whereas before, what did we have here? That's not a nice contrast color. The floor space in women there is 150. Men is 75. The new thing we got to do is add admin's floor space, which now gives us a total of 250. So what we're going to do with the 250 is we're going to split it 3 ways. Remember before, it was only twice to the service departments. Sorry, to the production departments. That's a mistake. What we're going to do now is we're still going to divide it amongst the women's and the men's production departments, but also the other service department, which is admin. And you'll notice that now the floor space is bigger. Previously, it was only 225. Now it's 250. So let's get cracking, shall we? The direct department cost of facilities is still the 60,000. Now we're going to do the same as before, but we're going to include a third one, and that is the other service department. So we're going to split the 60,000 three ways based on each ratio of floor space. So women is 150 out of 250. That will give me 36,000. Men, 75 out of the 250. Its share, 18,000. Lastly, admin takes up 25 square meters times the 60,000 is 6,000. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to increase the admin service department's cost by its reassigned allocation coming from the other service department, which is the 6,000. So this is the big thing in this method over here. Not only are we having its own original cost of the 90,000, but we are going to add the amount that's reassigned from the other service department, which is the 6. So we're going to increase its cost to 96,000 because we've realized that it actually receives services from another service department, which need to be paid for. Because there's no other service department, we're at the end of the line here. So we're going to take the larger admin department's cost of 96,000 and we're going to share it amongst the two production departments on the basis of number of employees. And that remains the same. Okay, so women is 15 out of 24, men 9 out of 24. The only thing that's different is we are reassigning a larger admin service department cost because we've added on its allocation from the other service department. And we do that and we get 60 and 36. So we're ready to write it up in a table, just like before. Women's direct cost, still 300. Now what are we going to do? Add in each of the shares from the two service departments. So let's come up here and we're going to look at facilities. What do we have? 36,000 for women and for admin, 60. So let's pop them in there. 36 facilities, admin 60, added to the direct department cost gives a total 396, which you see is slightly different to the amount that we got when we did the direct method. Now we're going to do the last bit. We're going to look at the men's production department and start with its direct cost of 250. Then we're going to add the share of each of the service department costs that's been reassigned to the men's production department. So let us have a look at the facilities and we see that it is 18 to the men and admin 36. So there we go. 18 to men for facilities, 36 admin. Add those three together gives us 304,000. And that's it. Now, I want you to practice this one as often as possible. Have a look at the worked example in the book, but please don't follow their method. Their tables are quite horrific. Do this. Okay? And just follow the sequence for the reassignment of the service department cost. Okay? I've also now done an extra question for you on this, which I'm going to pop up into the lecture resources folder for Learning Unit 5. You'll find it there under revision exercises. So it's going to be on the step method. Please, please practice. A very important section for the exam. Right, thanks. There we are. Hopefully I have simplified this, and I've taken a lot of anxiety out of this particular section because, as I said, the textbook is a bit daunting. So enjoy and best of luck with this one.